Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third installment of the Thomas and Dan show. Whether you're joining us live now or watching later on one of the streams, thank you for joining. I'm hoping that you'll find this a nice, insightful, engaging conversation, as it always is between the two of us. In case you've not been to one of these before, I'm Dan, he's Thomas. The plan for today is the pair of us, we're going to be talking all things Cloud Center of Excellence. So talking about some of the standards that are required, talking about potential automation and the skills that are really needed to build a successful cloud center of excellence for your organization, with people being at the center of it. If you've not attended, hello. Hi, you're right.
Yeah, just breaking on your monologue there and to let people know there's actually two of us.
Yeah, there are two of us. Yes, apologies. So I guess, well, seeing as you've kind of teed yourself up there, Thomas, just in case people haven't attended one of these before, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, this is the Dan and Thomas show, and yeah, I'm Thomas. I've been at Questas about 19 years. I'm the head of service design and big interest in anything cloud related, particularly around how you organize yourselves and set yourself up to get maximum value out of the cloud.
So that's Thomas. I'm Dan. I'm a DevOps practice director at Capacitas. I've been here for, can you believe it's nearing 10 years full time now? It's crazy. Time flies. But yeah, I essentially look after DevOps within the organization. So I come from the dev background, working a lot, doing coding, leading teams, and we've kind of transferred that across to the world of DevOps for multiple clients. So that is me and that is him. I guess if anyone has any questions or comments to make as we go along during this this particular episode, if you go to the LinkedIn event page and submit your comments there, we'll have our wonderful assistant Susan, who's keeping an eye on that for us, and we'll be posting the questions in the chat for us to answer. We'll get multiple opportunities throughout the session to answer those. So don't be shy, submit your questions and give it a try. Cool.
Yeah,
what can I say?
Our backroom team there ready and waiting to help you out.
And they're the ones who make us sound good and look good as well. So there we go. Thank you, guys.
I don't know about look good, but anyway.
Oh, well, okay.
That's why it's an audio event.
True. Well, they can't see that. Right, shall we get into this? So the plan is to discuss, as I said, all things Cloud Center of Excellence. So a couple of key ingredients that are required to get it really working within an organization and make it worthwhile and provide value, really. I say key ingredients. One of the biggest key ingredients, as Thomas and one of the other Capacitas leadership team members likes to refer to it, is the square onion or the squanion. There you go, English.
It's not English. It's not English.
What is this square onion? It's just making me hungry. We always seem to start these with talking about ingredients and baking and cooking and stuff like that.
It's my fault. I once drew a diagram which had multiple layers, but it looked like an onion, but it was square, and so it kind of got named that. But basically, it's going back to the idea of a center of excellence. Right at the middle, you've got your people, and then you've got layers you build around that. So you've got your standards, your enabling technology accelerators, the templates and things that you've made, and then around that you've got the way that is changing your organization. It's changing people's skill sets, changing the culture, changing the communities that work in the organization. So that is the square onion. I'm going to retract that term because that is getting overused, but you can imagine the picture, right? It's a square with 4 layers.
And I think at the center of that is the people. I know we spoke about this quite a fair bit at length in our last episode, but without all of this stuff doesn't happen without the people. And this is kind of designed to get those people using the standards, the automation, the skills, having the skills.
Yeah, the community of the people. The Cloud Center of Excellence is the people. I don't know if I don't go down this route. Do you know Soylent Green? Do you know Soylent Green? This is a 1970s sci-fi cult thing.
The name rings a bell, but
the only line anyone knows from it is, well, basically, there's this amazing food stuff that's solving all the world's problems called Soylent Green, and the closing line is Soylent Green is people. So, well, sorry to turn your story
There's
with
for
that one, but
context.
a cloud center of excellence is people, hopefully in a more positive way. So the cloud center of excellence doesn't exist without the excellent people at the center of it. So you often hear people say, "Oh, we've got a cloud center of excellence. It's on Confluence." I say that must be very uncomfortable for them.
Oh, that's funny. I think it's not just about the people though, because I mean you can have the people, but I think you want to make sure you've got the right people with the right mindsets. And I think and we've kind of seen this in multiple places we've tried to roll this out into, is if you get the right people with the right skills, having that right mindset and attitude towards it, then it does work really. I mean, how many examples have we had where we've come in and done something similar, tried to implement this center of excellence, and that has been like one of the first things we try and look at and try to get right, is for people's mindsets and the attitudes towards it.
Yeah, there's sorry, taking another detour into more popular science fiction. A friend of mine at one of our clients says you need the Jedi, but you don't want to just hire the Jedi to come in and fix it and run away again. You want them to train your own Jedi. So the people at the center of the Cloud Center of Excellence are your own Jedi who are there to solve all the problems in the galaxy, I guess.
You're
your
just saying that to
organization.
get more merch out of this show, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to have a Star Wars t-shirt next time.
Perfect. Cool. So I said that we've kind of used it in various different places. I guess from your experience, I know you worked on this. This is basically your baby, essentially. You've had pretty good experience getting this understood and rolled out across the clients you've worked for.
Yeah, and usually it starts with it's one of these terms which is grossly overused and very poorly used, right? Everyone goes, "Oh, let's have a cloud center of excellence," and it's about, I don't know, an architect writing a template and putting it on Confluence, or let's get AWS to come and create a center of excellence for us, or let's get this third party in and they will provide. You're never going to get it that way. You've got to start with how are you going to set up your people and your organization to actually own excellence in the cloud and to drive that out around the organization. And that's typically the point at which I'm jump up and down and shouting and trying to make something happen. So yeah, that then leads us on to the other layers of the onion, because you have the people, but then how do you get those people really influencing the organization around them?
I guess that kind of segues nicely into the first part of it, really. So it's important to get those standards right from the very beginning. We've been in multiple different engagements, and I can speak for myself as well, where let's say the standards aren't universally followed, and that's a problem. They're not standard, correct. So it's very hard to get a center of excellence if everyone in the organization or everyone in particular teams isn't following that one uniform direction of travel, essentially. And that's anything, right? So we talk, whenever I do these DevOps engagements, we visualize a 10-step model, basically from requirements to sign off. And what we tend to look at there is within each of those steps, there are standards you can apply for everything, right? Where are they being applied? Where are they being followed?
Yeah, I think there's kind of three things, right? So you're getting your process right, and that's going to kind of drive whether or not your center of excellence is a success. And then the things that they're going to own and evolve going forward, a lot of that is what technologies do we use, and then what does good look like on those technologies. So there's, I don't want to say tools, but kind of techniques you can use to manage all that. So if you have something like a tech radar, or there's other formats for that. There's a Gartner one that's quite commonly used as well. You can assess all the technology you've got today, and you say, is this a technology that we want to continue using into the future? Is it one which we're just operating and we may retire in the future? Is it something we're actively trying to move off at the moment? Is it something we're encouraging people to adopt? Is it something we're assessing ready for adoption? Was it something we've said, avoid, never touch this thing? So there's a whole load of states any technology can be in. And then one standard you've got to work on is how do you agree on that set of technologies which are in your adopt, push them state, and then how do you keep them up to date? Because what you should be adopting today is not what you should be adopting in a year's time.
I think you touched upon something there which I find quite interesting. So the question of what does good look like? I know when I've worked on various different engagements, that's one of the common questions that comes up when we talk about like the 10-step model and saying, okay, there are things in place that should be. Okay, but what does good look like? It's quite an interesting one to answer, really. And I think it's because like no one organization's implementation of cloud center of excellence or anything in the tech world is necessarily going to be carbon copy 100% the same. It's very hard to pinpoint this is exactly what it should look like. But getting those standards right in the first place, that's kind of like your governance layer, right? Of this is what good looks like for this organization.
Yeah, so you've got to, and this is why it's centered around those core group of people, right? You've got something that works for them and that they can work with and that they can work within that organization and deliver the outcomes the organization wants. So you could just say, let's go on to, the Gartner Magic Quadrants and pick what's at the top right or whatever every time, and that is what we will do. But that's unlikely to be the right thing for you. Well, unless you've got an awful lot of money to spend and you want to be leading edge on everything. The important thing is to have something which you can push out into the organization, which will be well used, which will deliver the value you want, and which you as a team can actually work with.
Yeah. There are a couple of areas where the standards apply to, really, I think. So from my side, when we've looked at stuff in the past, there are standards around even just like the ways of working, like how are the team actually going to go from here's a requirement, how are we going to get that through the backlog into a dev sprint, how are the team then going to work on that? You wouldn't necessarily see that as a standard, but actually that is your firm foundation, really, for getting developers working in a uniform way. If it's not been followed at that basic level, you're going to struggle when it comes to stuff like what do we do around security practices? What do we do around best architecture practices? And I think it also starts with communication as well. That's a really key thing I want to try and put across is, yes, you can have all these standards, but it's like what you said at the beginning, right? It's no good having all of these documented somewhere for no one to then bother looking at them. Like communication is key here. And that's where I think the people part really comes into it. If people aren't talking and people aren't collaborating together, makes it very hard to get anything done in general. So the standards just fall down, really.
Yeah. So I was talking to our Jedi at the center, right? And you're saying to them, what are the three things that you have to start getting standards for? So how are you going to agree on and what standards are you going to use for your technology? How are you going to deliver that? What's your process going to look like from a DevOps perspective? And maybe again technology that goes on that side. And then C, how do you represent the outcomes that you want on the cloud in patterns and templates, and how do you deliver those architectural patterns and templates in a way that the rest of the organization can use?
I guess there's a question I see appear up on our chat, so thank you for the question, around examples of standards and what particular standards or examples tend not to get followed. This could be a whole other episode in itself, to be honest, on which ones don't get followed.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly good classes of standards, particularly you think about it from a pattern perspective, right? Imagine you've coalesced around, we're going to use these technologies and here's the process. Then what does good look like using those technologies and processes? So one of those things, and this is probably where you want to align it to a good standard to use, is something like a well-architected framework. AWS and Azure both have them. I think AWS came up with it first and Azure plagiarized it. But you've got the different, if you think of them as kind of spokes that are going to go right through your cloud center of excellence from the inside out. So security is going to be one of them, right? That's you're going to have security standards, and you're going to go, we're going to be CIS compliant at this level or whatever. Now, that one, tends to be one that gets enforced quite well, depending on the maturity and of your organisation and what sector you're in.
That's a very important area, to be fair. So that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I'd imagine
Yeah.
it's the less important ones, or less, let's say, business critical potentially, that tend to fall down.
Yeah, well, less visible ones, perhaps, like the whole cost efficiency performance side, right? That's kind of bread and butter for what we're looking at, but that cost efficiency often doesn't get enforced because you can survive without it, certainly in the early days. So you're releasing a new product, you go, is this thing secure? Will it work? Will someone hack in and steal our data? No, they won't. It will work. Great. How much is it going to cost? Oh, it's going to cost quite a bit, but don't worry, we'll sort that out later. And then, I mean, you've been a developer, right? When do you ever get a chance to sort something out later?
If we had that chance, life would be a lot more enjoyable and easier. There we go.
So it goes in, right? Without standards around FinOps being followed, for example. So a lot of people think about FinOps as a retrospective thing, and that's not because that's what it is. It's because that's how it very often gets tackled, because people don't follow the standards around it.
Whereas if you are following it from the beginning, like that saves you a whole. I'm thinking if I'm the CFO and you're starting from the beginning, that's going to save me a whole world of pain. I wish, yeah. And I'm saving tons of money, right? Just from actually thinking about those principles and standards from the very beginning, rather than having to do it reactively.
Yeah, if you look at even something like the FinOps Foundation, which is, what people think about FinOps, and they think about the FinOps Foundation as being all about finance in operations. It's kind of in the name. There's a whole load of stuff that they have around making sure that it's built into your architectural process, making sure that it's built into your standards, make sure it's built into your governance. That's a good example of a set of standards that doesn't get followed.
Perfect. I guess, are there any other questions from anyone on anything around the standards? Maybe we give it like a bit. Do you think we've covered everything on standards? Like, is there anything there which we've seen in client engagements where, as I said, we could have a whole episode on this?
One thing I was going to say, and I may have mentioned it before, is it's really important not to stifle innovation with your standards, right? So the whole aim of cloud is you're doing it to be agile, move fast, and respond fast. And you don't want to build yourself an ecosystem that is then all about slowing down. So where you've got, this is why tech radar is useful, right? You're not saying these are the things we will have forever. It's a shifting world, and your tech radar will shift, and you may be shifting it on a monthly basis. You may be saying, right, this month, is there something new we need to assess? Well, we've assessed that, we're going to adopt that. Yes, kick that other technology out and move on to something which is going to give us better outcomes. And the same with your patterns and your templates. If you've got a good pattern template, you don't want to stop people from coming up with something better. So what I've done in the past is you kind of put in place a grading system. This quite often gets done, where if you're following our template, absolutely, gold standard, you can go through with no checks. We won't put you through all the detailed assurance you might have if you were coming up with something new. But that doesn't mean you can't come up with something new. Come up with something new, get the sign off from the Centre of Excellence that yes, this is a good new thing, and it'll just be a little bit more work, but you're hopefully coming up with something new that's going to benefit everyone in the future.
I think the talk of innovation is quite interesting. I remember I've just been looking through. I remember a while ago posted something on LinkedIn. I love my F1, Thomas, as most people do who know me. Adrian Newey, like the best ever F1 designer of a car ever. He's basically the epitome of innovation. And I think what I put on there, which I think kind of resonates here, is you've got to make sure that the right level of investment is going into innovation and it's not being ignored, encouraging creativity. Because otherwise, again, to feed it back to what we're saying about the people, if you're not doing that, people aren't going to keep motivated or have the right attitude to want to continue what they're doing, right? So with the Centre of Excellence being fully focused or centric to needing people at the centre of it, innovation keeps keeps things moving, keeps them interested, and keeps that center of excellence, I think, in my opinion, keeps it very relevant in the ever evolving trends and technologies that is our industry, really.
Yeah, and F1's probably a good example, actually.
Yeah, it's an amazing example.
Little as I know about F1, but you know, you do have to have rules. You have to keep some kind of level playing field, and you've got to have some kind of guidelines and guardrails around what's allowed and what's not. But at the same time, you've got to be constantly innovating, and that's what you need out of your centre of excellence. Right? And having a structure where you're actually encouraging people to try new things, but you've got your people who are the centre of excellence, who are making sure it conforms to what's needed. You know, you've then got a agile way of managing the guidelines and the guardrails and the templates and the patterns that you need.
And then what that then leads nicely into is you get those things in place, you can then start to build the automation around it. So that's kind of like the next layer into our whatever shaped onion it's going to be. Or can we maybe picture it cake? It's my birthday coming up and I've got cake on my mind, so maybe like that's like the next layer of a cake.
No, because it's a round thing or a square thing. It has a center. Cakes, you don't have layers built out from the center.
I'll just have to get cake off my mind, won't I? There we go.
You build from the ground up.
Oh dear. Automation. Loads of different examples and areas where you can focus on automation here. Typically, from my experience, a lot of automation focus gets put into from when the developers commit the code. So the whole process around, CI/CD, it's a well-known concept now, right? The idea of not just copying code across onto an environment, but actually getting the pipelines and the architecture in place to not just build the code, test the code, but also to deploy it. And with that has come, obviously, in the last several years, the evolving of like the whole infrastructure as code movement, which has been a massive game changer in how the deployment to environments takes place and gets managed.
Yeah, it's all about accelerating the speed of change. But there's really two reasons, I think, why you're going to want to take your standards and your patterns that you've defined and automate stuff. So A, it will mean that changes become much faster, much easier. But B, it's going to make it that much easier to actually adopt the standards that you need. The only way really that you're going to get an organization to adopt standards and to do that productively is by making that the easiest thing to do. You can set a whole load of laws and you can set a whole load of rules, and you just make people's lives difficult for them. And as soon as there's an emergency or something needs to be done in a hurry, people will throw all those rules out the boat and they'll do something else.
They'll find the loopholes and do it.
They'll find the loopholes. Whereas if what you were doing is actually making the right way to do things, the easiest way to do things, you're onto a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've spoken about like the pipeline side, which is kind of where a fair portion of the automation focus goes into. I guess we do an awful lot around the test side of things as well. So there's a whole bunch of standards that should be in place around how the testing happens, what exactly gets checked in terms of like code reviews and for code quality standards, not just from a best practice, but also a security perspective. A lot of that you can get automated, like there are other tools available, but the one I tend to use quite a lot is SonarQube, which that is essentially just you put that in your pipeline, automates the whole idea of static code analysis. You then got the idea of, why do you need to have a balance between automation and manual testing, right? I'm always a big advocate of the 80-20% rule. But if you can automate that 80% and leave yourself with just the 20% to do with like the eyeball test, makes life easier. Things like Cypress, Playwright from a front end perspective are absolute godsends in my eyes. Rec and Roll, or what was formerly SpecFlow, yes. The one I'm qualified in.
Yeah, and all of that, right, becomes part of your pipeline of how you deliver change quickly. And then the key thing is to be able to take that and make that easy to adopt. Is where you use things like, say, self-service catalogs. I was talking to someone earlier about Backstage.io, right, is the open source standard for that, which came out of Spotify. It's what they built
Yeah, I've
to
heard of that.
effectively self-serve infrastructure pipelines internally, and it gives you a great set of capabilities because you can serve your standards via Backstage. Well, yeah, there's other similar products out there as well,
Mm.
and any product team in the organization can start equipping themselves with what they need while following the standards that have been built into it. What's not to like about that?
Saves time, is more efficient. I mean, you can't argue with that, really, can you? And it even gets applied, I think, at I guess the examples we've spoken about there are more, let's say, your core, your ops layer, your test, and what have you. But it's also like, we're quite big on DORA metrics, how we would like keep a track of the team, basically the management information metrics, essentially, right? Get that automated, and that's the whole end-to-end automated, essentially. But stuff like that's really important, right, to get done, because as like a manager or a management person in an organization, you want to get a quick view, right, of okay, all of this center of excellence, it's all great, but how is this actually affecting our delivery? Are we delivering quicker? Are we producing better code? Yeah, I mean, you can have all these bells and whistles in place, but if it isn't actually providing the value or the benefit, there's no point, right? So stuff like automating that DORA metrics, along with the standards, obviously making sure they're in place and the people are on board, that gives you a quick, easy way of viewing, okay, here's a snapshot of this is how we're looking this month. Okay, you can compare that to last month. This is how we're progressing. We're going in a positive trajectory. Let's keep doing what we're doing.
So those first two layers of your center of excellence are doing two things which the business really cares about, right? And they are the most critical things to your business, whatever your business is. They make sure that your people are equipped to deliver the best quality, following all the right standards, and to do it as fast as possible, right? And if you get those two things right, the impact's amazing, right? That is going to really transform how your business is equipped, how your business evolves, how your business is enabled by technology. And it moves from a position where the business may see technology as this slow thing which they are waiting for. It moves to a position where they see technology as a thing that's enabling them, and that's the transformation you're trying to achieve by getting this center of excellence.
We've started to see this in one of the engagements we're both working in, really, for a finance company, where essentially, the standards were kind of in place but not really being followed, and there was automation in place in pieces but not universally. We've basically come in and helped redefine and reestablish those standards, govern those standards, make sure there is the right automation and the right self-service catalogs there for the guys to be able to pick up once we've gone. And I think the results we're kind of seeing have been very positive, and they are starting to move in a more forward direction to being what we would class as like maybe not close to gold standard DevOps. There's still work to do, but they're getting there.
Yeah, and the more you get there, the more the business will buy into that vision. So the problem that they had from the start was, the business's perception of using some of these platforms was, it's slow, it's expensive, it's a waste of time. And the more you change that, the more the business gets excited about what IT and what technology can do for them, and that's where you start to be able to move into delivering new types of functionality and make use of different services and open up more of, say, what the cloud has to offer to you, because the business sees the value they're getting out of what they have currently invested into the cloud services.
Yeah. I see we've got another question. This is good. Thank you, everyone. So, question for us: is standards creation a team sport? Are people more inclined to follow them if they've had a hand in creating them? Oof.
Yeah, I think that comes back to our cloud center of excellence is people, right? Your center of excellence isn't a set of people whose job it is to sit in an ivory tower and set standards. It is the people who know about engineering on the cloud. Now, it's not everybody. It's probably, say, what might be today your platform team is going to be your Jedi sitting there in the center. But the more you can involve people from your product teams as well, the better, because they'll appreciate the reason for those standards and so on. So
Yeah,
organizationally, you're going to have, by the time you finish building your cloud center of excellence, you're going to have a team which knows the cloud inside out. They're at the center of things, whose job it is to make sure that everyone's enabled to use the cloud to the best of their capabilities. You have all these product teams around them who own the products the business uses. I think the answer to this question is that team in the center has to drive the standards, but the more that they can, and this is coming on to our final layer of the onion, the more they can involve everyone else, the better those standards will get adopted.
I'm trying to think of a nice
We'll talk
analogy
about
for it.
the skin of the onion. Should we go on to
Yeah, for skills. Let's have a go. So I want to kind of start with this one. I know we get some like uni attendance in this session, which is really good. I've actually just come back from a careers fair yesterday. That was very good fun, good promoting the company. But I think the question we often get asked at these kind of fairs, and even like in client engagements we've been in, right, is actually, what skills are needed to be a success in the industry we're in cloud consultancy, but essentially development in the cloud. And I think the question we get asked by the uni students is kind of very similar here, right? So the skills that are required to make a success of the Cloud Center of Excellence. And I think there's kind of like a nice marriage here between, obviously you need the technical skills, of which there are so many, and we'll delve into several of them. But I think, I said about the communication, you need those softer skills, you need those more personal skills, I would say, as part of this. If we're going and not communicating what's going on with all the standards we've created, if we're not actually properly knowledge sharing, or again communicating, this is the cool automation that's been created to improve efficiency and increase or decrease the time it takes to do this, there's no point really.
That final layer is really getting out to all the people who need the skills and who need to understand the why to use these templates and how to use the automation. So you've got the rest of your organization is basically your outer layer, and there'll be all sorts of ways you're engaging with them in that. It may be you're running communities of practice across people who are using cloud infrastructure. It may be simply that you're getting a presence in town halls and lunch and learn sessions or whatever, to get out there and say, here are the new ways that we've got for you to better make use of cloud faster and safer and cheaper. It may be that you're running training sessions to get some of those skills that Dan's talking about across, but you want to get everyone as involved in this as you can, and to let them know just how much easier their lives are going to be when they do things properly.
Communities of practice is a really big answer, really, for not necessarily, for sharing the skills. I was going to say not necessarily developing the skills, but actually it does help. I've seen some organizations where they're less keen, and it's like, you need to make sure you know what you're talking about before you come in. But actually, I think if you've got the right mindset for it, again, to go back to what we would tell the students, if you've got the right aptitude to want to know about this stuff and to actually want to make an improvement or to do a good job, communities of practice is the way forward. Because I mean, I've sat in a handful for one of the clients we're both working on, and the amount of stuff, I know what's going on, but the stuff I've learned from that is crazy from a testing perspective. I've learned a lot more from watching that stuff, and I thought I knew a lot of what there was to know. So if I'm learning in my role, then the opportunities are endless, really. But you probably don't learn, Thomas, because you know everything. So
I think you can prove the wrong impression. Scared to show my face on one of these things again.
No.
We've had another question come in here. So, should the Cloud Center of Excellence be responsible for making changes within the cloud, or upscaling and enforcing standards, but ultimately leaving change to individual teams?
Well, we've seen it done both ways, haven't we, really? And there's probably a hybrid in between.
Yeah, I think the Center of Excellence, right, is about creating the tools and the ways of working and the automation which enables the teams to own the product change. Right, so it comes back to what I was saying earlier. You've got a platform, right, which is your cloud platform, your cloud landing zone, your cloud ecosystem. You need your core cloud people to own that. And those will be the people who are there at the center of excellence. But they're not the people who know about how to build a financial application, or the people who know about how to build a healthcare application. And those things are products which need to make use of the capabilities that the cloud's giving them. And this is kind of why you've got these 3 layers, I think, around your cloud center of excellence. Yes, your center of excellence team are defining how to use cloud well, in a way that's cost effective, in a way that's performant, in a way that's scalable, in a way that's secure, in a way that's reusable. Yes, they're building you, if you like, the plumbing, all the pipelines and the templates and the patterns that you can use to create your applications. But then, as an individual product team, say I'm running a product team which is building a financial application, I'm the one who owns the cloud that I'm building. I'm using all the bits that they've created. I'm using their plumbing. I'm using their templates and the molds, all the rest of it. But the individual teams really need to be able to own that product level change. And that's important because of what DevOps is, right? DevOps is all about the accountability for security, for quality, for cost, for everything sitting with the single product team that owns the development and the operations. And if you're in a model where your cloud center of excellence, you can't see my air quotes, is actually just an infra team, right? They're the ones who make all the changes to the cloud. Then they're not a center of excellence, right? They are an infra team. You're in a model where you're not doing DevOps, you're doing dev, and then you're doing ops. And that's a model that works for some people, but it's going to slow down your delivery.
I think that's a very true point. I've seen that happen as well. You've got the main central function who basically his job it is to keep on top of all of that, and then there's an expectation that everyone else just knows what they're doing. That's not necessarily the case if they're not talking to one another, they're not communicating that down. You've not got the right communities of practice or the right representation. Everyone needs to marry together essentially to make this a success. Is to go back to the team sport question, it is very much a team sport. I was trying to think of the analogy earlier where you've got again, to go back to F1, you've got the FIA, the F1, the stewards, who none of them have ever really been race drivers. This was several years ago. And they're making decisions on whether Max Verstappen's a dangerous driver. We'll let that open to the imagination. But the minute you get actually the guys on the grid involved in those rule-making, the decision-making, get former drivers in there, then you start moving towards a more, let's say, a more repetitive, a more standardized model. And I guess that's kind of similar here. You've got everyone working together with the same kind of, they've got the same end goal, right? They want the same thing for their own different teams, their own different products. Move together, use the expertise from each of the areas, each of the parts of the onion and each particular part of the 10-step model to create those standards, to drive the automation through, to get the right skills in place, to share that across. You will ultimately end up with, a cloud sector of excellence. That is excellent and gold standard.
Yeah, all these people have roles to play and they're all going in the same direction, but you're not going to get your stewards to drive your car, right? That's the delivery of a product sits with the product team. And this, there's a whole topic around how you govern FinOps around the process. That's probably another thing to cover someday. We're going to talk about sustainability next month. And again, both sides of that, your platform team and your product team, both have roles to play. Right? The platform team have the role of setting the right standards around how you're going to build sustainable architecture. They have the role of creating the pipelines and creating the templates, creating the capabilities to self-serve sustainable architecture. The product team have the responsibility of using those in a way that's going to be sustainable, not just deploying loads of giant servers for the sake of it.
No. That's a beautiful segue, actually. I'm well impressed at that. And we're going to come dressed as
segues are my speciality.
Yeah, they are. It's Earth Month next week, so it's a good opportunity to talk about that. And I know it's something that has come up in these sessions before, and it is very much relevant to even the stuff we're talking about today. So it all ties in. It all ties in some capacity. Cool. Have we missed anything there? I think we've covered quite a lot actually. I've enjoyed the chat.
We covered
Hopefully,
all the onion layers, right? You've got
yeah.
the center of excellence is people in the middle. You've got the standards they're setting, the way to enforce the right quality. You've got the automation of the building to make everything happen fast, and then you've got the culture and the learning and the skills and the ways of working they're creating right across the organization.
And unlike normal onions, this one probably won't lead you to cry. So we've been peeling those layers, and no tears have been shed, which is good. Perfect. Well, as always, Thomas, thank you very much. I've enjoyed that conversation. I've got a lot from this as well. Hope everyone else has got something from this as well. Stay tuned for the announcement of the sustainability chat. Otherwise, thank you for attending. Thank you for watching. Speak to you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
This is where the jingle goes.
Yeah.